Welcome to Black Writer Therapy, a podcast where Black women writers are invited to sit on the proverbial couch, have a cup of tea, and share the stories behind the stories, and what it really takes to write books about Black women in an industry that still prefers white as the default. I'm your host, published author and unlicensed therapist, Ella Shine. Black Writer Therapy is now in session.
Piper G. Huguely's biographical historical fiction, By Her Own Design, a novel of Anne Lowe, fashion designer to the Social Register, tells the inspiring story of the Black fashion designer of Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress. By Her Own Design was a Booklist Top 100 Editor's Choice selection for 2022. It was named one of the top 100 books of 2022 in Canada by the Globe and Mail newspaper and was selected as the historical fiction winner for 2022 by the American Library Association's Reading Council. She is a literature professor at Clark Atlanta University and blogs about the history behind her novels at piperhuguely.com. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her husband and son.
Hi, Miss Piper Huguely. Thank you so much for joining me here on Black Writer Therapy Podcast and sitting in my proverbial couch.
There you go.
How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. Thank you so much. This is an honor.
Oh, wow. No, really, it's an honor for me. Oh, okay. So kind of a rough start. So let me, woosah and get my life together while I'm doing all this.
I woosah too. Woosah.
Yes. Woosah. Okay. You are really, really cute. Like,
oh, thank you.
I normally because I don't believe in like not giving compliments when there's a need to. I don't give them just to throw them out there. But you're like so cute. I've been looking at your pictures and I'm like, she can't be this cute for real. She cannot be, and yet you are.
Oh, I appreciate that, Ella.
I love that. Okay, so normally, I always ask this one question of my guests, and because I just don't think it's asked enough. So my first question to you is, how are you feeling today?
That's a good question to ask. I think particularly for not just Black writers, Black women writers, in terms of what is it that you choose to help yourself heal. And I've had quite a lot of recent loss. So it really is something that I really should be more purposeful about. I haven't done it yet today. Just to be honest.
Yes.
It hasn't happened yet today. So I know it is what I need to attend to that today, but it has not yet happened.
Well, how do you normally go about healing? What normally kind of lays a balm on your soul when you need it?
Reading can do that. Taking myself for my exercise does that. I can really do that unplugged by doing something completely frivolously, like playing games on my tablet.
Yeah.
But I always tend to be a little harsh on myself about that because it seems so wasteful. I know, and it's like that's not really the way I should think about it because it seems as if other people. I've had a long-standing theory about writers in general, not just Black women writers, but writers in general who have another artistic outlet that they use that feeds their writerly creativity if they do it, and it's usually something that's very productive. So this is why I think I tend to be a little harsh on myself in terms of when I get on my tablet and play wasteful video games, because I feel whatever I do should be more productive. And even though I don't count my healing, my peace in that productive space. So
That is interesting. And I'm going to just share, even though you didn't ask, but you know what? I'm going to share a little bit of what I learned when I was going through yoga certification. No, I did not get certified. I went through the entire thing and I didn't even want to get certified. I just wanted to go through it because I felt like it was something that I needed to do for me. And so I remember being in office hours with the instructor, and she said, "Oh, you say should a lot and suppose a lot." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do me a favor. For the next week, remove those two words from your vocabulary and don't try and replace them with anything. Just remove them." And you know what I figured out? That just by not giving myself permission to say should or suppose, that it freed me from that feeling of guilt and obligation and all of those things. And I think especially as Black women, we don't believe we have a right to simply be. To simply rest.
We're often told that.
Oh, I know. I know. Like like sitting and resting and being, just being. Then why are you so lazy? Why are you wasting your time? Why aren't you doing something productive? But I am. I'm being still. I'm being quiet. I'm being entertained by this really goofy game on my my tablet. And so yes, that is one of the things that I'm always kind of like, I'm having to remind myself, and I remind any other Black woman, whether or not she's a writer or a teacher or doctor, whatever she's doing, right? Housewife, I don't care. You have a right to be, because that's what we are. Human beings.
Good reminder.
Yes.
Human
you
beings.
Have a right to be. We are human beings. Yes. Look, and if that's not enough, I have a 22-year-old daughter who is from the generation of, I believe that rest is my right. It is not a luxury. It is not a privilege. And I do not dream of labor. So
my 22-year-old son believes the same thing.
Oh, you have a 22-year-old son? I thought it was like a 22-year-old girl thing. Okay, so it's just that generation.
I do have a 22-year-old niece who also believes that, but my son also believes that as well. So I think it's a generational thing.
I'm impressed with it, to be honest. And my daughter just graduated from Mount Holyoke, and she did it in 3 years.
Wonderful.
With high honors. And I said to her, she was like, "Mother," and I don't know why my children call me that. I promise I didn't make them. I don't even like it. "Mother, I really want to just come home and figure my stuff out. I have some things that I want to work on for me. I don't want to go work for someone else and make their dream come true. I just want to really focus on my thing." And you know what I said to her? My husband, like, he's old school. She gonna have to come home and get a job. She gonna have to do something.
It's always the husbands who say this.
And I said to him, I said, "Babe, just imagine if you had come home from college and you had the support and you said, 'Hey, mama, can you just give me maybe 6 months, a year to see if I can get this thing going?' Like how far you would be in the place you really wanted to be, as opposed to going out and doing what was going to get you an income, right?" And I said, let us be for our children what our parents could not be for us. And so I'm allowing her to do her thing, and I'm really kind of learning a lot from watching her like go through this process.
It's a different way of looking at it, for sure.
It is. She says, "I don't want a job. I want a life." I said, "Yeah, that's what I told my mom when she was disappointed when I said I'm gonna major in English." Yeah, and I remember saying, "I don't really want a job, Mom. I just want a life." And it was so funny to hear my daughter say that to me.
Well, that's what happens. My mother would say, "You get what you deserve."
And I'm okay with it, because she's reminding me that you have a right to just be sometimes. Yeah.
Love it.
Yes. All righty. And I have to ask this question. Piper, is that your real name?
It is. Yes. All of it. All three. Piper John Huguely.
Piper
John.
John?
Gian.
Get out of here. I have to hear the story.
Everybody got a name story,
There
right?
is, look, if I don't care if everybody else has one, but you have to have a story behind Piper John Huguely. Like, get out of here. I'm listening.
All right.
Me and the listeners
all
are
right
listening.
now. Okay. I'm the first grandchild on both sides.
Okay.
So people who know that with that first baby, there's a little bit of a war happening. My paternal grandfather, who probably would be shocked by me, I have no doubt of that. He would be stunned and shocked by me to know me in this incarnation. Said in his way, where he, full of the patriarchy and misogynoir and all that.
Oh, of course.
All first granddaughters are supposed to be named after their paternal grandmothers.
Really?
Yeah, which I've never heard of that rule.
I was about to say, is that like a southern thing? Because I've never heard of it. And I've been here forever. Okay, all right.
Like, go ahead with that. Okay, so then I would have been Ida Mae.
Okay, that would have still been cool. I love that name.
Yeah, and there after I learned a few years ago that there's history behind my grandmother's name. I didn't get that from her. I got that from my research. But my mother was very steadfast in having her own way about that. And yeah, let him know in no uncertain terms on that and many other things dealing with my father and their marriage and stuff, like no.
Yes.
With all due respect, so when you hear them words, something.
Yeah, not really though, but
yeah, exactly. There is no respect in what I'm about to say.
Exactly.
So, her initial thoughts for a girl had to do with Thea, and she thought at one point Pier, which Pier Angeli was a movie actress in the 50s.
Okay.
She had thoughts of that. And then one night she was looking through the TV guide and saw that Piper Laurie, who was a movie actress, was on something that was going to be on TV. And she thought, well, I like that. And the reason why she tapped into that was because it was musical. My father was a classically trained opera singer. And while my mother was not classically trained, she sang with him. They did all kinds of gigs and stuff all around Pittsburgh. There was a family singing group, all of this stuff, deeply into music. So they settled on Piper. My middle name was my mother's way of maybe giving a bit of the finger to my paternal because she knew that both my uncle and her stepfather, who were named Johnny, she couldn't come right out with the John. So she looked in a baby name book and saw this Italian variant, Gian, and that's what it is. And she said, this musical is the first name. The middle name means gift from God.
Yes.
And this is how my mother is, like, musical. Her whole thing with both my sister and her name and my names were in terms of fact that with a multisyllabic last name, you have to have a shorter first and middle names.
Yes.
So both of our names have the same beats, sounded out, all of that.
John
Huguely.
Huguely. Oh my, look, can I just say, that, and yes, Mom, I'm here for all of it.
She was fabulous, no doubt.
Your mom has passed away.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Because I would love to meet her.
Oh my God, everybody! She was just fabulous. But yes. It's like this whole thing. When she passed, I didn't have the same kind of deep loss because she had poured so much into me. She's with me all the time. It's like I wear all of her wisdom and everything. It's like a warm blanket that surrounds me. And I liken it to when Babe Ruth, so everybody tells the very famous story about Babe Ruth, whenever he would step up to the plate and he would point to where he was going to hit the ball. She claimed this for me.
Oh.
Yeah, a long time ago, when you're going to be a writer and you're going to be a writer and these people are going to go buy your books and this is what's going to happen and all this other kind of stuff, like as a fait accompli. He
Wow.
claimed this for me, um, in a way.
That is beautiful. Like,
Mhm.
I knew I was looking forward to this freaking chat for a reason, Miss Piper. I'm so serious. Golly.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, I love
Mhm.
everything you just said. And the fact that, because when you're talking about like your mom and your family, you have this, like, I don't know what I can call it. I want to say it's a glow because that's
Oh
so
yeah. Oh,
cliche. And it's
definitely.
not the glow,
Yeah.
but it's like this kind of power. This, I
Yeah.
don't know. That's what it feels like to
It
me.
is. It is
You know,
it is power. And like I
yeah,
said, the part of the grieving I was talking about earlier is because I've lost them all. I'm the only
yeah.
one left.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Wow.
so I know that the things that I do, are about forwarding and carrying on and being lifted by them and their artistic giving spirits.
Yes. Yes. Even your sister.
Yes.
Oh my word.
Yeah. Earlier this year.
I am, look, and I never say I'm sorry when people tell me someone has passed on, but I am sorry that you are here, like,
Yeah.
and you're it, but
Yeah.
not really because you carry them with you, and of
Mm-hmm.
course you have your Dresden divas. So
Yes. Do you have them too?
yes, but gosh,
Yes.
that's a lot. So, but still, you still carry this power with you when you speak of them,
That's it. That's entirely how I think of it. That's
and
entirely
so
how I think of
that's beautiful. That
it.
is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Okay, look, we are not going to stay there because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a teary-eyed girl and I will get the blubbering really fast, and that is not what we want for
No,
this.
no,
For this,
no.
if you want to blubber, I'm here for you. But
Okay,
we don't
okay. I
want the
appreciate
host.
that. I could
Look,
be
we don't want the host to sit up here and have a complete breakdown because I'm good for it. Okay, so
okay.
let me keep it moving. All right, Miss Piper. So I did. I'm looking over your biography and like you're the business. You are the business, and you're so like you. I was like, okay, Piper. I felt like this when I was getting ready for Vanessa Riley. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
Lord, what am I going to say to these people?
Mm-hmm.
But then you guys are so like great, and so it kind of takes everything down. So you've written books prior to um by her own design.
Right.
So romance, and I
Mm-hmm.
looked through some of your back catalog, and I'm going to say this because I say it all the time. My TBR is ridiculous. Like I have
Yeah, of
so
course.
many books, like 16 authors in this first season,
Wow, yes. That's quite a few.
and you all have like
Mhm. Multiple
catalogs,
books, yeah.
and I'm just like,
Mhm.
look, I'm never, but I will, right? Because whatever.
Mhm.
So why historic fiction?
Well, I am a professor by
Mhm.
day, and when I was teaching at Spelman College, I would be in the classroom, and I always ask my students at some point, whatever I'm teaching, what is it that they read
Mhm.
outside of the classroom that has not been assigned to them?
Yeah.
And at this particular iteration, around 2010-ish,
Mhm.
they were telling me that they were reading Zane. This was the response that I was getting repeatedly around that time.
Mhm.
I'm not putting anything on her. That's wonderful that you're getting that kind of education, but there's also some other things
Yeah.
where you might need to educate and edify yourself.
Mhm.
So I was wondering where and how they might get that, particularly because as a literature professor, I often found myself having to tell the history
Yes.
first in
Mhm.
order for them to get to the literature. And so it finally occurred to me, in my on and off writing space that I had been having, what if these students had something that they could read that talked about people their age in that 18 to 22-year-old space on a historic level that showed that people their age at different points in time did great, marvelous things. So the other aspect that I noticed teaching at an HBCU was how much the history is a part of not just the curriculum in the class, but also in the practices outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
In terms of the awareness of how the school was founded, brought about, put together, supported over the years. So my thought was, I could write a series about how historically Black colleges and universities were a way in which for Black people to respond to the attempts after the Civil War to shut down their humanity.
Right.
So that's how I developed my first series, which was about a fictitious historically Black college and university in the wake of the Civil War and how it was put together. So I took all these little bits and pieces from different HBCUs and how they came to be and put it in the Home to Milford College series, which is what that was about. And since I know they were reading Zane for a reason or whatever, I made it a romance. So that they could tap into that part of it, as well. So there are 3 books in that, which actually technically is four books, 3.5 books, because there's a novella that I wrote as well, that conveys that history about how HBCUs got started, etc. So
look at my face. I'm trying to not be this chick, right? But sorry, Miss Piper, I'm going to be this chick. That is so ridiculously cool. that first inspiration was, hey, my kids are reading Zane. I want them to read some other stuff. And because I am an English teacher usually, but not anymore, right? Not anymore. I'm retired disabled. But I taught high school English for almost 15 years, and I realized early on, I said, if the kids don't know the history behind what, the time period that we're looking at, because high school English is all literature and writing, and so I'm like, if they don't know the history, they don't understand that, then there's no point in trying to get into the good stuff, just like you realize. And I didn't go out and write books for them because I was not that invested in my kids, let me be honest. Okay. but I did a fair amount of history, teaching the history and making them much aware of that. And so I completely get why you needed to go that route, and then, but just to be that invested in your kids. And I see, this is education needs, because we call these grown folk that we teach, they come through our classrooms, these are our kids.
Yes.
So to be that, to be that invested in your kids, to say, let's write this historic romance series about an HBCU, so that they can see that there's more to literature than Zane. And again, nothing against Zane, because I too write through an erotic lens, and so it's not in the same vein as Zane,
right?
Because I'm kind of character focused and style focused, but I do love the erotic lens. But yes, I don't know that I would have.
It's just a question of making things a little more well-rounded. And since I knew they were already getting that from Zane, then I didn't have to put the sexy times in.
Exactly.
I put it more forward as a courting kind of, in terms of that old-fashioned approach and what that meant. That's what's in that series, as well as the other series that I also did. That actually was in tribute to my paternal grandmother, Ada Mae, about the Great Migration, or how Black people went from the South to the North during that part of the 20th century. She did that, and as actually one of the interesting, intriguing things that people it always gets to people is that she and my paternal grandfather lived just outside of the gates of Spelman College for a year.
Really?
Yes. So that, they lived in Eastern Alabama, where there is actually a Huguely, Alabama. That's the actual plantation place.
Oh my
there.
God. See, this is the lovely stuff I love talking to you guys
Yeah.
about because of the research.
Yes. Oh, yes. I knew of it. And then I went back and did some more research and got all of that tea about that. They as many people in the Great Migration did, they would leave their small towns, but they would still stay relatively close first. They'd go to the nearest big city, which for them was Atlanta. And that's where they lived, just outside of the gates of Spelman College, where my grandmother would tell me about how she always wondered what went on.
In those gates, inside the gates.
So,
and then her granddaughter ended up
finding
being a
out.
professor. Wow.
Yeah. So they stayed there for a year and then they moved to Pittsburgh. So they made the big leap. So yeah, I just transplanted my, and she was very close to her sisters. They were called the Golden Girls. So I have a group of sisters, but in the first etchings of the Great Migration, like in 1914, 1915, when it first started happening, not the second wave was when my grandmother did it, because there's always this very intriguing question about why. Why, when Black people for the first 50 years after the Civil War still stayed very close to home, what were the factors that made a number of them make that leap? For wherever they went, whatever it ended up being, wherever the railroads went, it wasn't like some purposeful choice. It was like, how far can I get on this amount of money, kind of thing. So that's what Migrations of the Heart, that series, is about. That each sister has her migration story.
I saw the covers and I was like, oh my God, the covers of all of your books are ridiculously beautiful. But those first two series, I was like, oh man, they're so gorgeous.
Thank you. And that was my independent foray into publishing, because publishing at that point in time, 2014 to 2019-ish, was not at all interested in what I was putting forth. So I had to do it myself.
So those were self-published?
Yes.
Okay. You are just look, I'm like, I don't even have to pretend I know what I'm doing as an interviewer, because you are like just great. You are great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw those and I was like, oh, now I want to read them, because I'm getting so into historic fiction, because I can't, it's like 16 authors and probably 10, 14, seriously, have been like, there's some historic fiction somewhere. Even with my fantasy writers, they're still historic. And so I'm just like, man, what's up with Black women and historic fiction? Because what are we doing? Because I find myself even right now in my work in progress, I'm never going to do this, and here I am. Delving into it because of questions that have come up with my own family. And so
it matters. It's an act of reclamation, I think. So that is, at least that's how I see it in terms of this. So when I did the series, and the series independently published did do a lot for me in terms of raising my profile to a certain point, that allowed me to finally, took a while, but finally obtain an agent, and finally, because of those connections, obtain a content editor for a traditional published book. So, and they were things that happened prior to 2020, which I think was important to say, that there was already, I think, a shift in terms of happening to say that some of these stories deserve a more widespread platform.
Yes.
And so I had always thought, ultimately, because when I would teach the history before the literature, some of the ways I would do it would be to talk about the unheralded Black women who had not had their acknowledgement for their accomplishments. So that I always envisioned that there would be a 2.0 iteration from the romance, from the historical romance, into historical fiction that would then permit me to write the stories of these women who have been unheralded and not valued.
that's really interesting that you said that. And it just dawned on me that so many Black women get into writing through romance. Like we all start like in that romance vein, right? Wherever it's going to be, like, you know, sweet and sassy, all the way to girl, don't let your mama know that you wrote this stuff, right? And then, but we all start in romance. And then it's like, wait a minute, there's some bigger stories that I need to tell. There's something a little bit deeper, a little richer I want to get into. And so why do you think that's kind of the path that we take?
Well, I even the great Beverly Jenkins said that was the place where she thought she could get published, and I think that's what it is.
Wow.
I think I think a lot of people think that is the place where at least you could get your foot in the door in terms of publishing.
Yeah.
So,
and that's it, just getting that foot in the door.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. This is my last question about not you. Not for you, no ma'am. It's my last question about the whole, like, you're a professor. And now you're at Clark Atlanta?
That's correct.
What do your students think about having like an award-winning best-selling Miss Piper Huguely author as their professor? Like, what do they think?
Bro, I ain't thinking about that.
Don't do me like this. I'm getting all geared up for you to say, oh my gosh, they come in with their books. Like, no, that's not.
Please.
I just want to believe that. I want to.
I think I'm a nut. That's what they think.
Face drop.
They think I am crazy. That is what they think.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, they do.
When they think you're crazy, they know that you're about the business of.
That's right. They think I am crazy. Absolutely. Now, a couple of them, a handful, you know, because I do tell them. Because again, a lot of people say, "Oh, why do you teach your books?" No, I don't teach my books because I think that is a conflict of interest. I'm not there for my students to make money off, you know, of them. But I do say at some point, you know, there are things written that you can go read and find. You can go to your library, because our library does have my books. You can check them out for yourself and find all those things. So there'll be a handful across how many classes I'll have in a term, 4 classes or whatever, who will say, oh, is this you? Whatever. That's why it's that. Hey, you know, whenever I started getting into the romance thing, and it's like, oh, you need a pseudonym or whatever. One of the things was the point of your writing name is to be the only one, right? And I'm the only Piper Huguely, so it's like, why am I putting myself through all of that?
Yes, because I have a pseudonym. Like Elishon is my pseudonym, because when I started writing, I was still teaching in the public school system, and I had you know, my daughters. I have 3 of them. They were younger and they were still in school. And I was like, we cannot. Yeah. We cannot have everybody like, oh, Miss. And so Elishon is actually like a derivative of my middle name. I just played
that makes sense.
And you know, and did that. So what it's my last little thing. I think I saw something on your website, because you know, I'm out there digging around, and it's this 2015 AAMBC Literary Award winner. And that's the African American on the Move Book Club.
Yes, that was very early on when they had started giving. I think it's like only the 2nd year. So
because they're doing their 10th year anniversary this year, and they tapped me to be an ambassador for them.
Oh, cool!
And I was like, this is great, but y'all, I have my feet, my hands. I am dipped in the whole body of crazy right now. And I so wanted to do it for, you know, Black Writers Weekend, but I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do it justice. You know, but I thought that was very interesting. All right, we're getting ready to get into it. Let's
all right. Yay.
So I asked, what is your most cathartic book? And this is our first segment for Black Writer Therapy, and it is intentional writing. I found a medical definition of the word intentions back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, you know, that's a thing. You're shaking your head like you're the See, English teachers unite.
Mhm.
Because I am a word nerd. Like I just absolutely love words. And when I found that medical definition, I was like, the other definitions of intentions no longer exist. Because for me, it is always about healing, because that's what we're here to do. Just heal. That's it. Heal ourselves and maybe help somebody else heal. So the first segment is intentional writing. Writing, that's a part of the healing process. And you said that the most cathartic book thus far for you is By Her Own Design, Miss Ann Lowe. So why was it so cathartic for you to write, to research, to put out here, all of it?
Well, I see By Her Own Design, as well as the subsequent books I'm writing, whatever, as really positioning a place in fiction that I don't really see. That is Black woman as artists and what that means for us. Actually, no, that it has happened before, and it's a book I recommend often. Plum Bun by Jessie Fawcett.
Wait, because here you go again.
To add to your TBR.
Yeah, she said plum bun.
Bun, B-U-N.
B-U-N, okay.
Yes, Plum Bun. Which is that. And I think it was, but it's, it's 100 years old, slightly over 100 years old.
Okay.
So it's my way of saying what happened to that theme, and how can historical fiction, or at least looking back at these women who were artists, and find a way in terms of talking about their life stories as the ways in which they found their way to express their art.
And when I was going through, kind of jotting down my notes about things I wanted to ask you about in the book, that was one of the main points, this idea of vernacular artistry as a means of like freedom and self-defining and all the things.
So that's why for Ann Lowe, and again, if you're talking about intent, my thing was to get people to see this woman that way as an artist.
And you did
not a seamstress.
No.
Not
I
just,
see.
Some little cast off kind of thing. Yeah. But as an artist who was purposeful in designing not just those dresses, but her life in that way.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Can you expound?
Yeah, well,
Dr. Huguely, can you expound on designing not just clothing, but her life? Because she was like about it,
She was about it. I was talking about this to a book club yesterday or whatever, and someone in the book club was like, she was all me. I was like, that's right.
And that's how you're supposed to be.
That's it. Yep. Okay, Caleb, I'm sorry. I have an idea for a dress. So you want this post-coital cuddle. It can't happen right now because I have an idea.
I got stuff to do. You have to wait. Cuddle with the pillow. I'll be back.
I'm going to be right back, honey. Let me just get this down. Yeah, exactly. And so for Black women, or anyone really, because sort of, again, the main theme is about what does it take to fulfill your dreams. That's for everybody. It's just that in terms of Ann Lowe being who she was, where she started out, what those circumstances were, she had a tougher climb to that than most. So the book, in terms of saying that whomever you are, if Ann Lowe could do it.
Okay. She did. And not only if Ann Lowe could do it, but if Ann Lowe could do it on her terms. I think that's like the big part, right? Because she did it on her terms.
On her terms.
And even though, I listened to the book on audio.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Like I said, I got 1 million books to read.
I hear that.
And I listened to it, which I don't listen to books very often. Because I love to, but yours was the first that I actually did an audio through like Libby. And I said, oh my, this is a different experience. I enjoyed it. I
Good.
really enjoyed
I
it.
selected Tracy purposefully.
You did good. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
like just listening to her and all the different like, voices and just the nuance of her reading. But I'm gonna tell you what, Miss Piper, there were some parts in this book that I was like, what the, excuse my French and my Spanish, what the hell? She is 12. And you research this stuff and you find this information and you're like, put it in, don't
Mm-hmm.
put it in. But yes,
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
put it in because it's her
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah,
So, oh
yeah,
my, please tell me, like,
yeah.
what?
I cannot deny her life. I wouldn't deny her life, right? So exactly. It's not, I would say it's not attractive, but again, it's sort of like the the ways in which, and I can thank my Migrations of the Heart series for this, as well as my paternal great grandmother, who was born 2 counties over from where Anne Lowe was from, for insight into that. Just listen to people talk about like you were the one meant to write this or whatever. I do believe that.
Yeah.
There were too many serendipitous um, overlaps
Mm-hmm.
that led me directly to this. So that I did not pick this subject; it chose me
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um, to say that this is what young Black girls in Jim Crow Alabama were subject to, and to show that.
That just hurt my heart.
I
It
know.
hurt my heart.
I
And
know.
and then it reminded me
I know.
of stories in my family.
Yeah.
Of my mother's older sisters. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a minute, that's not so far-fetched.
It's not at all.
Like that was a thing.
That was a thing. And it's the thing because this is what history does. We have to acknowledge that thing and be reminded of that thing so we can prevent it from happening because.
Piper, gosh, man, I hate to cut you off, but we need to pay some bills. Give me a minute and a half, and we'll be right back.
Savannah J. Frierson is a USA Today best-selling and award-winning author telling stories of beautifully imperfect women discovering they are worthy, desirable, and deserving of love just as they are. In addition to writing, Savannah is a freelance editor, Gallup Certified Strengths Coach, and a speaker and workshop facilitator. As a coach and consultant, Savannah has worked with clients in various fields and focuses on bringing people into alignment with what they naturally do well to help people get clear about their goals and the best ways to achieve them. And now back to the Black Writer Therapy session with guest Piper Huguely and host Ella Shawn.
All right, we are back, and we are back to discuss why historical fiction is so important and why remembering it keeps us from repeating it.
It was just last year. Everybody was focusing earlier this year on the hijinks of the Tennessee state legislature and what they did to those members
Mm-hmm.
in terms of that. But
Mm-hmm.
just last year, they tried to pass something related to marriage and did not put an age limitation
I
in it.
know. And they did it. They tried to do it in Missouri, I believe, and all
Mm-hmm.
these other little special places
Mm-hmm.
where, yes, 12 can be the age of
Mm-hmm.
consent.
They stayed trying it, and people had to say, "Oh, hold up, you forgot to say 18." They
Right.
didn't forget. They did not
No,
forget.
because they are like, oh,
No.
these child brides can be a great way to make sure that, well, we're not a political show here, but all
So
right.
yeah, that was all purposeful, intentional. Mm-hmm.
Yes. That part
As
really got me.
horrific as it is, and I say one of the plaudits I'm proudest of is that Parents Magazine said that By Her Own Design was a book that people 12 and up should read to learn about Black history.
Yes. Yeah. You
And
wrote it
and that's what I've always
beautifully.
aimed to do. So thank
And
you.
yeah, because it's not even like it. Yes, I know that you have some fictitious areas in there because you have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little
Yeah.
entertainment, ha ha ha.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I'm like, because I looked at my daughter and I looked at something, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, a documentary on fashion, and Anne
Mm-hmm.
Lowe had a little blurb in there.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, this tiny little woman, I can't believe Jackie Kennedy didn't even like that's what I got out of the documentary, because that's all they
Mm-hmm.
said, right? That Jackie
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy didn't
Mm-hmm.
even acknowledge her. And she was
Mm-hmm.
justice for these people and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, 3 years later I'm here and I'm like, I had no idea who Anne Lowe was.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is my hope in terms of this historical fiction being a first step to restoring her, if not just every February and March.
Right.
Then at least for people to know and understand, here is an artist who existed
and who continues to exist through her art.
Yes.
And so that's where we're getting ready to get into.
Good.
Okay, because I'm over Mr. Lee. I don't even want to talk about him.
Well, okay, we can move right past that.
Yes, I did, because I put down here, boy, I just want to throw his behind under the jail, like under, with cement shoes on, and honey and bees. I was so done. And I was listening to some parts of it, and you didn't spare me. And thank you.
Yeah.
Because I needed, as a reader, to be in that space with her. And you did. You just sucked us right in there. Boom. Here you are, Anne Lowe. And it was like vicariously experiencing this horrible man who knew her father. She is 12. That is a baby.
His need to gain control over her, to groom her with food, knowing that she was malnourished. So much evil.
And that's exactly what, because when I was like, wait, why? He is grooming her. And I think just having that in there, especially in the climate that we're in now and it's not like it hasn't changed. That's the thing. Like, we can say, oh, this happened back then. It was very prevalent back, but no, ma'am. Like, it still happens.
It still happens.
You know, people are still these grown men and grown women, because I will not let women off the hook.
Yes.
They groom these young people in all different ways. And I'm like, oh, you did your thing. You did your thing. And thank you for doing that. But still, I was like, don't let me roll across somebody named Lee in the next couple of don't let me do it. So I want to talk about the social registry, because boy, Ms. Lowe was proud of that daggone social registry. I'm in the social registry myself as
girl.
So tell me, when you were doing your research, like, how did you find? Because I didn't think it was a real thing.
What, the social register?
Yes, because why would I know, right?
None
of my people were on the social registry first and foremost. Okay, we didn't do enough dirt, and we didn't have enough money. So
there you go.
How did you, like, when you found this social registry? Like, what was your kind of like? Oh,
well, it wasn't really shocking to me, because what this country from its inception has always been about the creation and the preservation of hierarchy. Even as we say it's not, try to say it's not. It is foundational. So, this whole aspect, and in terms of my historical interest, I always known about the 400 and how that transformed into that, etc. No surprises. There's, some kind of book listing people to say X, Y, and Z.
They are here. Everybody else.
Here are the worthy people.
Yeah.
In terms of that. But the question, of course, for a lot of readers and for some Black women readers is their discomfort with Anne Lowe making, or aspiring to become part of that.
I don't know that I was uncomfortable with it. I realized that it was something that, at least how I read it, that she had been kind of, this is how you're going to get on in the world, and you need to make sure you find you some good white folk.
The line,
you need to find some good white folk. And she wasn't the only person who was told that. I know, just from being a Black woman, look, if you're gonna make it, you're gonna need to find and align yourself with some, a white face to go with this brown face that can get you in some place. And I never necessarily prescribe to it. However, I completely understand why Anne Lowe would say, yeah. And even now, you have Black folk who are like, I don't necessarily, like how white folk do, and yet everything that they engage in is a way to move closer and closer to proximity to, white lifestyle, white,
Mm-hmm.
all the things.
Yeah, to all the things. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, Oprah Winfrey's grandmother very famously told her that, and she has said that is what her grandmother told her. And still, it's to say, when it's said in 2023 in a room of 200 Black women at a book club, that was like you could have heard a pin drop.
Right, right.
But I'm saying this is the historical truth of it. And like you're saying, I can't sugarcoat that or ignore that, particularly for that woman, Grandma Georgia, who said it,
Mm-hmm.
a woman who had been purchased out of
Right,
slavery by her husband, but still told that she had to stay where she was so that her good white people would treat them well.
right, right.
This is her. This is the way she sees the world. I'm not going to be able to act otherwise.
No, and I wonder if that pin, that silence in that
Mm-hmm.
room of 200
Mm-hmm.
was not so much, oh, and no, I can't believe that you did it, and just kind of maybe thought of, well, shoot, am I still going in that same vein? Am I
Right. Am I
still
still
trying
doing that?
to,
Mm-hmm.
get in with good white folk?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
because man,
Mm-hmm.
you
True.
know,
That could be. That could be why I was so silent.
yeah, I've had conversations with a lot of people, men, women, boys, girls, it doesn't matter, but I'm always asking, like, how did you grow up? And then how are you living right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in the country, everybody around me was family, it was
Mm-hmm.
family land, all this, but now I'm in the suburbs. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
my neighbors, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a lot of us out here, and this is that and the third,
Mm-hmm.
because why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. So you
Yep.
keep asking
Yep.
yourself,
Yep. You keep asking
is it that
yourself.
different?
Yep.
Is it that
Yep.
different? That's what
Exactly.
I got out of this book. I kept seeing all of these parallels between then and right
Mm-hmm.
now, and it just
Yes.
goes to show historical fiction, yes. Modern, what's happening to Black folk and Black women, yep.
Mm-hmm.
We have not gone that far
Yeah.
away from it.
Well, all historical fiction, people try to, act as if it's not, but all historical fiction is equally reflective of the time that it's written in.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
oh, oh, I
mm-hmm.
love that. Let me write that down.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when so especially even when especially this is something that comes up in a lot of historical fiction reading and writing groups in terms of language to be used when talking about
Mm-hmm.
Black people, etc., and what should be used and can't we be historically accurate kind of thing and all of this. And it's like, are you writing because you want to present historical truth or whatever, or are you wanting to use certain words because you can, but you're not thinking about triggering this potential Black woman reader that you have, which according to Pew Research is the most likely reader, is a Black woman with some college.
Right.
Which is it? When there are alternative ways in which you could shape and craft your language so that you don't trigger
And you
that
still
woman,
stay true. But no,
which is it?
that's a great question.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm always talking about that. People don't necessarily listen to what I have to say about that because, and there are a lot of authors who don't think of
Mm-hmm.
Black women readers as the most likely reader, whatever.
Because
But
they
I do
believe the
like to say
stereotype.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And it was
That
even that finding in that research study, it was an incidental thing. They didn't do the research in order to find that out about Black women. It just
mm-hmm.
happened that they figured out that the most likely reader
Right.
is
It's a
a
Black
Black
educated
woman
woman.
with college.
Right.
So you don't have her in your mind when you're writing a story.
Of course not. Of course not. Because see, you're getting ready to take me down into segment 2 because of that whole idea of the white default. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So I'm going to go with the Kennedys real quick. And I'm going to tell you this. Like I have my own little, hang-ups with the Kennedys, as most people probably do. But man, the way you allowed us to meet the ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
As he came stomping like the big dogs up in Miss Lowe's dress shop.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going to happen. It's this, that, and the third. And poor Jack.
Yeah. Yep.
Why was it important to you that we see Ambassador Kennedy in this light?
Well, it made me think about Ambassador Kennedy and his portrayal, but I think what people don't see or haven't seen as much of, or don't think about as much of, is that early Jackie before she becomes the global icon Jackie. And it really has been just these past 2 years or so where you're seeing those portrayals, and by her own design. There's another book called Jackie and Me. There's sort of this focus on who she was before all of that was necessary to say, that the aspects of that wedding, of that marriage, where she and Jack were pushed together for an entity. People had this romanticized ideal about them, but honestly, that was a created political product. The wedding was more coronation with 800 people at the church and the entire United States Senate and their wives, since there were no female senators then. 1,200 at Hammersmith Farm for the reception.
Yeah.
A created, filmed, political product to launch them as future president and first lady.
And yes, and that like I've grown up hearing Camelot, like they were
right.
And
right.
When I was listening into the book and just kind of, I like to do my own research, and I'd already like been interested.
That's what historical fiction is all about.
Yes, to make you go look deeper.
Mm-hmm,
so I'd already been kind of looking into Jackie Kennedy and her family, because I had this kind of weird fascination with her dad.
Yes.
Like Blackjack, really, yes. Yes, okay. And so I've always been kind of like, but then to see how you did this, I was like, yeah, it sounds more like what you would get over in the Tudor clan in England. This kind of, we're going to put these two people together because they're from two powerful families.
That's it.
And this has nothing to do with any kind of love or anything like that. And so I loved when you had the ambassador come in, and I know you were like, this, pay attention to what his presence is doing to Jacqueline.
Yeah.
I was paying attention to him because I'm going to tell you why in a minute. I was paying attention to him because I also have this fascination with the Kennedys. And I'm like, there's so much like lore around them, but none of that dark underbelly that propelled the family into this space, right? Like no one's talking about.
And there's a lot of dark underbelly.
How they got there.
A lot of dark underbelly.
How these Irish Catholic people in a waspy nation, how they got to this place. And I've always been fascinated with that. So when he comes in there, I'm like, yes, look at him, because he's showing his colors. He's showing, he's showing where he came from and how he got there.
Yes.
And so that's what I was kind of focusing on. But then to get back to Jacqueline, it might be me being a little, but I'm looking at Jacqueline Kennedy and I'm looking at Anne Lowe, and you have them, and I see them kind of as different sides of the same coin. In a lot of ways. And I was like, I don't know if she meant for me to see that, or maybe I'm reaching, maybe I'm crazy, because but that's how I see them. This kind of, except like where I would expect for Jacqueline Kennedy, right? Or what was her name prior to that?
Bouvier.
That's
Jacqueline Bouvier.
Now I'm like, and see, don't get me started on that, because I'm anyway.
Well, Bouvier means cow herder, It sounds very fancy, but it means cow herder.
It does, but just the fact that it's French.
Right?
That's that little French thing. And I'm like, but then
And they was more Irish than French, but they glommed onto that Frenchified stuff. Oh, yes, man. Oh, yeah.
And then you have this whole thing with with the Black Irish, and not Black Irish like African Irish, but the
Right,
Black
no.
Irish.
Yes.
And so, and I'm like, man, what? I was in it. Can you tell how deep
Oh,
I
yeah,
went?
that's fine. It's fine.
I was in it because I was like,
Because I started out as a candy aficionado too, so I know exactly what you're talking
and
about.
so yeah, all these little hints that you were just dropping little, and so I'm like, go pick this up and go do some, because you dropped some beautiful nuggets. And I was like, yes, girl. But I was looking, and I would expect Jacqueline to be more. People, I guess, would expect her to be more like Ann Lowe, who was like, this is your dress, your wedding. You need to do what you need to do for you. But she was so like, Lord, I just wanted to hug her.
Yeah.
And punch her at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I don't have. Look, and Grandma used to say, no, Ellen not gonna suffer fools very long, and I don't. Not even as a kid. I did.
Heard that. I heard that.
I just couldn't. I was just like,
she was not able. It was not there yet. It was not there yet.
Yeah, she was so
that she had to come to. She was not there yet. But in terms of seeing them, and as I say, the question always about why Ann Lowe didn't do anything for her in terms of commissions after that. For her, she still designed for the family now.
Yeah.
All the way up into her half sister's wedding, which was an Ann Lowe dress. But for Jackie, never again. Had all that. As I thought, what connects them is that fatherless child.
Yes.
Aspect.
Yes.
And Ann Lowe saying to her, well, at least you had daddy.
At least you knew him.
At least you knew him. As trifling as he is, he's trifling. Girl, so put your big girl panties on.
Stop whining.
Suck it up. Stop the whining.
Yeah.
And do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Right? But that whole aspect of that. So I think part of the whole thing with the ambassador too, was Jackie, sort of glomming onto that, as she did several times in her life, powerful male figure who's going to come in and take care. Was very much.
Now you got my brain going another way, because I'm like this. I also like to play around with the fatherless daughter. That's very, because it's my story, right? So I do love playing around with that, trying to figure things out. And you said, like she would kind of like, I have this very powerful man and save me. But Ann Lowe wasn't looking for anybody to save her so much. I mean, she really was. I think she saw that Lee fellow as a way to, she's like, I just wanted to be able to sew what I wanted to sew and do what I wanted to do. And I couldn't do that while sitting under my mama and my grandma's lap, they making me sew these little, So again, for her, men are not necessarily take care of me, see me, protect me, love me. Men are like, wait, can you get me out of here and get me someplace where I want to be?
That's right.
I know it's going to be a sacrifice. I get it. But I still, like, what can you do for me?
Exactly.
Like, is that like something that you think is, it's kind of like, oh, Black women who don't have fathers, like in that time period, that was so common, and we're so used to it because of, the enslavement and this is that and the third. It's just like, okay, fine. I don't really need a man to take care of me. But I do recognize that men can move in ways that I can't.
Yes, there's that men can move in ways that I cannot. Right.
Yeah, because
it's an interesting thing. I said it's actually one that continues in my next book, like I said, which I'm editing now, American Daughters, which between the two of them, my editor, she highlighted in the edits this one line. It's like, I never knew so much about my father as the back of him. So
I don't even know what to say to that. And whatever you have, whatever man, woman, child, boy, girl, you have to fight to make sure that line stays.
Oh no, she highlights. She's like, no, this is great. This line is great. That's what she left. She said.
Wow.
Like,
I never knew so much about my father as the back of him. And I wonder how many girls feel that way. Like even girls who grow up with their fathers in the home. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this was somebody else who, her father was present, but not present. This whole aspect of that.
Right.
Very much
And
so.
that, again, I'm so fascinated by it. I am completely fascinated by it. And it crippled Jackie.
Yeah.
I think.
For a long time. Yeah.
And it emboldened Anne Lowe.
Yes.
To go out and do her thing. It's so neat, that juxtaposition there. Now, you could have written this book and it could have been trauma. It could have been tragedy. It could have been, whoa, Miss poor Anne Lowe with her little tiny bird legs and this, that, and the third. No, but you didn't. You didn't. I felt when the book was over, and I knew, oh my gosh, okay, wait, I gotta slow down. I knew what was going to happen by the end of the book, because the way you opened the book, you were clever and brilliant. I freaking love that. Okay, it was like, don't you think about it. Don't worry about it. This is what's going to happen. But wait, just let it get through. Oh, brilliant. Sorry.
Thank you.
Kudos.
Yeah. Again, very purposeful, but also I said, even in the discussion stage with my editor, her saying, well, so much of her life was sad.
Yeah.
So how can it end on a hopeful note? I said, oh, I have that already taken care of. I know just where I'm going to end it. So that's not a problem.
Even though so much of her life was sad, it was so much triumph. Like, she never said, listen, I'm just going to sit down and see what happens. She never succumbed to situations. She was like, I can't control this, but what I can control, I'm going to make sure I'm controlling the whole of it. You did such an amazing job. I didn't get that, oh man, I need a cigarette or drink, something. Like, after reading this, because some books about Black women, right? So heavy on the trauma, so heavy on the tragedy, so heavy on all the heavy stuff. And you delivered it all. Yeah. Okay, unapologetically so, I may add. But I left this book feeling empowered, proud, like extremely proud of this woman, right? And proud that I can say, it's just a Black woman, and guess what? Yes. Me too. Me too. You did a beautiful job with saying trauma, yes. Tragedy, yes. But guess what? Triumph. That's what I want you to focus on. I don't know if you were saying that's what I want you to focus on, but that's what I focused on. I left there feeling.
I'm glad you got that from it, because exactly. That's exactly what I had wanted. And it's so funny you mentioned it. Like I said, I had a very cool book club yesterday, where this one member, she was coming for me, honey. She's done her research. She was ready, to say, almost as to say, it was like she was coming around a certain way, but I see these people coming all the time, so it's all right,
True.
Come around almost and say, how dare you get our hopes up, about this woman and what she did and everything. You was like, well, you're like, now it was this time period, and I know she could not have been up in that hotel with those people saying this, that, and the other thing about her, whatever, but that was true. And completely disarmed this, reader who had thought I was going to say, oh, I made that up, so I could have a, happy ever after ending, or I made this up about her, whatever. No, that wasn't necessary, because all of that was already there.
But how could you read the whole book and not see that? Yeah, she did that. Like, it was par for course for her.
Very much so. To say literally, and several people have said this and seen this, that she got her flowers while she was still alive. Yeah. Literally. Yes. In terms of that. So that was all done with that in mind. And like you said, some people, would call it trauma porn or whatever. In terms of my whole thing, even in terms of the historicals that I write, are about, for too long, we have been about looking at what they did to us, and instead looking about what we did in spite of what they did to us.
There you go.
Shifting the lens from what they did to what did we do in those circumstances.
Because we always find that Black joy. We always find a way to make it work. Of course, you don't hear those stories.
Right. And this was, if anything, that's a continuously running theme throughout my historical work, is about what was their response to the insistence of dehumanization,
right.
Whatever. Always that. And that their response is one that we can still do today in the face of the Ron DeSantis and whatever. I'm about to send him this book to be like, please go ahead and ban it. Ban it. Please.
He is not capable.
See, this woman who lived in Florida for a long time. Go ahead.
Yes, but he's not capable. Not capable. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I haven't sent it, so that's why I toy around with that sometimes to be like,
gosh. Anyway, don't get me started on any of that. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit, right? Because we've talked about so much. I want to know how living in the intersection of Black woman, professor, writer, all these things. I want to know, how is it, because you are an artist in your own right, how is it living in that intersection? Black woman artist, Black woman academic. Oh, that in and of it. Okay, that's a whole nother show. I'm going to have you back on season 2. Okay. I'm serious. I'm so serious, because a Black woman academic. Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm going to have you back. I know. So, anywho, how does that intersection affect your writing? How does it inform, or how does your writing inform it? Like, what's that interplay?
Well, I think it's me being insistent upon that they do intercombine in this way. I've always done that because I've both an MFA and a PhD. Okay. So it's like, you're up here trying to say this. No, it's always been this. Yes. You can't separate the two in terms of it. So it's just what I do. So this is it's my insistence on, saying this is what I do. And being, maintaining a creative life in the face of these academic standards. Or even, I said, one of the things in terms of the Black academic piece is that now that I am entering into the tenure track, being told that my novels won't count for that, and what to do with that, and how to find a way around that. Formal sit down once the term gets started, and go back to school and all that other kind of stuff. But
that's crazy.
Oh, it's utterly insane. It's utterly insane. It is.
I mean, I never taught at a college level, but I've gone to college. Did that twice. Go to master's. So I understand.
Oh yeah, you can see in a master's space, you probably can see enough of it to know you didn't want to continue.
So whoa. So you've done all this work, but it's not going to count towards your tenure track. Well, they must not know who they messing with.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I said I figured that out.
Yeah.
It's not gonna. No, we're not gonna have me setting this aside. It's too important.
Indeed. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to just drop me a line and tell me how that went, because I'm here for all of it. I am here for all of it. And again, it goes back to not me, but my kid. You can't be both. You gotta. And right. She's like, no, I can be. Right. I can do all of it. And so when you said that this is just what I do, and I'm like, I think that's the necessary fight for Black women to be seen as whole, complete women who aren't compartmentalized. Like we aren't just that one facet of womanhood. And I think that other groups of women, they are able to pare themselves down to that. I am an academic and this is what it means. And there's this kind of lack of creativity, unless they're a creative academic, there's this lack of kind of feminine energy that goes
Mm-hmm.
along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
because they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm an academic, and that negates that feminine creative energy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won't say anymore, but thank you for saying that. Thank you
You're
for saying
welcome.
that. You've shared what you hope to do with your writing, and I'm just going to say you did it. You did it. Good job.
Yay.
Good for you. And so I want to get to this last question that you said I could ask, because you wrote something in. Do you remember writing something in? Look at your
No,
face.
what did I say? I know my face. I do not have a game face, girl.
Oh, me
I will.
either.
It is all here.
Me either. And that's why I'm glad that this is audio, because God forbid the people can see me looking like I look sometimes. Sometimes some guests say something, I'm like, I get that sister girl. It's just what it is. This is what it is.
It
But
is what
you
it
wrote
is.
in, I noticed in your selection, you don't talk about the marketing, sales, expectations for Black writers at the publishers.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Miss Piper, because I have no idea how the publishing industry. I mean, I know because I've been researching, okay, but also you were in it, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm. So, like you we were talking about earlier in terms of what the stereotypical thought is about, um, which is what the publishing industry has seen for so long that, or has believed for so long that Black people don't read. But that this Pew Research, again, study indicating that Black women are the most likely readers that they're going to have. And thinking about marketing in terms of what Black women writers do, not just in traditional spaces, but in other spaces where those readers are more, where they hang out more, etc., is the thing that needs to happen. And as many publishers know this, my own publisher knows, my editor knows about this, is sort of talked about this whole aspect in terms of allowing more of us to enter into those marketing publishing spaces that allows people to open up and say, sell more books, which is always the end goal, isn't it?
right.
This aspect.
Right.
This is the end goal, is to sell more books. So those are the ongoing, I think, things to think about. And again, I think that even in terms of what I had embarked on in 2014, in terms of what I just talked about, getting people, it's not just white people, it's especially and also Black people, getting them to say, don't look so much at what they did to us, look at what we did in the face of all of that.
Right.
They're teaching us lessons that we must take in and embody. And I mean, even in 2014, when Obama was still president, not having the sense to see about why that might matter, but oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Now that really matters, right? And I guess I appreciated one of the members of the book club yesterday saying, in terms of hopefully that a book like By Her Own Design can inform the modern day reader in terms of thinking about that in that way, in that triumph. How do you persevere? How do you continue to go in the face of these increasing efforts to dehumanize you?
Well, you know what?
You're not human.
I'm going to say this, and it's just me, right? The publishing industry, for what I've been able to see and understand, they put the money and the marketing money behind certain types of books that portray Black people in ways that are so limiting, and so one-sided. And am I saying that they're not, those stories aren't important? No, every story that is told is important. However, and I think to both our points, that is not the whole of Black people. In fact, that is not even the majority of our story. And
Yes.
so if, to your point, if the publishing industry is really going to do what it keeps saying it's going to do every time they have a DEI initiative, every 16 to 20 years, then it would stop pushing this very kind of limited, this is what we want everyone to see, and this is how we want Black people to see themselves, and this is how we want the world to see Black people, and start pushing stuff like this, because this is the truth of who we are. And this is where the money for marketing needs to be going. Yes, go ahead and support. That's great. But man, I'm like, you put millions and millions of dollars into this, and you're giving like pennies on that millions to this stuff. This is what we need. And so that is like one of my biggest pet peeves. It's one of my biggest soapboxes. And every time I say something about it, people are like, oh, but why are you coming down on street fiction and thug fiction? I'm not. Write what you want. Do what you want. But I'm talking about the publishing industry, not the writers. Stop throwing this out here as the true story of Black people, as this is the culture. This is what. No, it's not. No, it's not. And that's, there. Yeah, I want them to throw millions of dollars in marketing funds behind this stuff, because this stuff needs to be taught in school. This stuff needs to be taught in college levels. This stuff is what needs to be in all the bookstores and at New York, Times bestsellers list. We shouldn't have to go rummaging through. Can we find this book? Do I have to go beg? We only got 3 copies. Why? I need. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
This is what I need.
I understand.
Because this is what these Black women with a little bit of college. This is what we're reading.
I understand.
So market to the people with the money who's going to go out and buy the books, because this is what we're reading.
Yes. I see increased attempts, but we do more. I agree. Doing more and being better in terms of this. And the fact that more of these stories are being published now. Like I said, in 2014, too.
Right. What
I call biographical historical fiction books were in existence.
Shush your mouth.
2. So now we have more. We're getting more, at least on a monthly basis, even almost. Next year will be even better, which is really cool. So yes, the whole thing in terms of my publisher, other publishers who are taking these narratives in, and like I said, they're taking them in, and now let's push them.
Exactly. Right? Don't just take them in
places
and be like, oh, look at what we're publishing. Look at who we're publishing. No. Because give them what they deserve. Let us see the truth of ourselves, not the lies that we've been fed through our history classes and all this other nonsense.
Yeah. Okay. This was even one of the things I had never expected in terms of my publisher was to push me into Costco, which was really something, and availed me the opportunity to be seen and have book clubs who's told me they're 100 miles from Omaha and 75 miles from this, that, the other thing.
And I love that for you. I love it for you because it's needed. Like, your voice is needed. Your words are needed. These stories are necessary. And not even just for Black people, but definitely, you really need to be reading these books and like pouring over them, taking notes, going to do some more research, and then saying, oh, thank you so much, Ms. Piper Huguely, for doing this, because I was so ignorant.
Absolutely.
Stop pushing it. Stop saying that there's not an audience. That was your next thing. That's how we're going to slide into segment 2, the audacity of Black women writing.
And that's it for this first session with Piper G. Huguely. Yes, I said the first session. This is the only time I've had a double session with one guest. But as you can tell, Piper and I had a lot to talk about, and there is still a lot more to come. So please come back on the 28th of September, 7 a.m., and check out the second and final session with Piper G. Huguely. I am your host and unlicensed therapist, Alishan, thanking you for your continued support and your continued downloads. And that's it for this session of Black Writer Therapy Podcast. Bye. Thank you for joining me for this session of Black Writer Therapy. Be sure to follow and leave a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And keep the conversations going on Instagram using our hashtag Black Writer Therapy. I'm your host and unlicensed therapist, Alishan, reminding you to be kindest to yourself first, always and in all ways. See you guys next week. Bye.